I am Ivan Phonics. Even Phonics. If you don't know the bit, Evan Phoenix, who's not here, would mispronounce everybody's name, and so I'm replacement Evan. My name is Barrett. We have lightning talks. Here's the way this works. We have 2 spots that we reserved for scholars, and neither one of them have put their names on the spots, but I understand we have at least 1 scholar. So if you are a scholar and want to give a lightning talk, please come on down. We have 2 podiums, as you can see.
Okay, so do you have an adapter?
This is podium number 1.
Okay, come over here.
And this one, but you can't guess, number 2. So I'll go down the list and come up. I'll have people come up before. If you don't have any slides, this is also important. If you don't have any slides, I will give you 1 minute. Come on down. We have more people signed up than we have time for also. That's another important detail of lightning talks. So if anybody wants to just talk for 60 seconds without slides, come on down. Nope? Okay, cool. All right. So the next person in line will be Broke, talking about Gitland. A lightning talk is a maximum of 5 minutes, and when my handheld computer says that 5 minutes is up, shh. Okay. Broke, going to talk about Gitland. Go.
All right. Thanks. Hello, everyone. Thank you. I just wanted to talk about Gitland. Git is the proper way to pronounce this. It's a Ruby gem to help you lint your code and be basically a good coding buddy for you and your team. So if we kind of step back and look at a non-descriptive Git commit history, right, we'll have these Git commits and we'll have these subjects, right, and they don't tell us anything of what's being committed to the code. It's not fun to work with. It's not fun to use in your own code base. It doesn't help you understand how the implementation got constructed in the first place. So let's not do that. Now, if we go back and we take a look at the anatomy of a really good Git commit, it's going to have a subject, and it's going to tell you what it is that's being commit. That's really critical. That's what a lot of people do by default, but that's where they stop. Where you want to go further, though, is you want to have a body. And the body explains why that Git commit is there. You have to explain not only what it is that you're committing, but why you're doing that, because it's so critical for you 6 months down the road, a year down the road, or just explaining to your team how you implemented this architecture. It's really critical for the communication and transparency of a well and healthy team. Now, if we dig into this a little bit further, right, when we have a prefix of our subject, right, like added, you can have several prefixes there, such as fixed, added, updated, refactored, removed. Those are generally the things that you're doing when you're committing code. Along those lines, you want to check and make sure that you have good punctuation. You want to make sure that it has a 72-character limit because you don't want horizontal scrolling. That's not fun to read. You want to make sure there's a space between the subject and the body. You also want to make sure that there's proper capitalization of your body messages as well. Because, in English, writing good paragraphs usually starts with a capital letter beginning your paragraph. And then lastly, I don't know if that came up. Oh, yeah, there it is. You want to get rid of superfluous words, right? These words don't really actually help you explain why it is that you're committing your Git commit message, so you can just remove those out. It's actually something that writers actually are well aware of in addition. So us as engineers, right, should try to adhere to that as well. So when you put all that together, right, you start to have a readable Git commit history. So each commit is a page in a book. You're basically reading through that book to understand how that implementation came to be. And this reads really well. We can see that we initially started with a gem skeleton. We built that up. We added some architectures type stuff. We eventually refactored it, a little bit of cleanup. And then finally, we updated the README, kind of the capstone to the end of that work, right? It's really nice. It's really easy to read and really easy to understand how that gem got committed. Now, the reason this is important because this adds to team efficiency. If you have a really bad, gnarly part of your code base that's hard to read, hard to understand, and even go back into your Git log and try to understand how the team got to where it is today, that costs time. So if you have one of your engineers taking an hour to understand that, another engineer doing the same thing, you spent 3 hours just in your team alone trying to understand a really bad code path. So try to be a good citizen to your team and make sure that it's very easy and for them to read and get up to speed as quickly as possible. This is even worse if they have to go through that code path several times over and over. This starts to multiply, and it's costly to your team and costly to the company. So where Gitland comes into play is it's basically your automated code buddy, right? You can install this just like any other gem. It's very easy to get started. You can switch to your branch, and then you can immediately start analyzing that branch and get feedback as to the quality of that branch. Even better, you can wire it in as a git commit message hook. So if you write this little bash script here for the commit message hook for any of your repos, you can set up the bash syntax here. You can set up bash just code quality here that checks to make sure your bash scripts are properly formatted. You can check and make sure that git lint is actually installed in your system. And then finally, the bash zero argument that comes into the commit message hook here, that is your commit message coming in. So as you write the commit message and save it, that fires and sends it through to Gitland here and analyzes to make sure that that commit message is fully formatted the way that you want it. So let's take a look at that. So if we go into the git commit flow, right, we commit a message, we write a subject, it's horrible. We add a body, truly horrible as well. That's not what we want to do, but when Gitland analyzes it, you're going to get this nice feedback so that you can know exactly what you need to do to fix it. There's your subject. There's the various analyzers that analyzing your commit message. There's the helpful hints to help you figure out how to fix those. And then finally, specific lines that you need to fix in your commit message. And then finally, stats at the end. Oh, am I over? Oh, wow. Okay. So anyway, thanks.
It went fast. We were having fun.
Hi everyone, I'm Rashmi and I'm a software engineering intern working at Looper based in San Francisco. And today I'm going to talk about machine learning in Ruby. There is so much hyper machine learning which is going on because of the advancements of machine learning in not just in healthcare and finance, but in privacy and security and so many other domains. So let's understand what is exactly machine learning and what's the categories of the artificial intelligence and why they are really helpful. Artificial intelligence in a nutshell, it's a technique that enables the computers to mimic the human behavior. And the machine learning is a subset of the artificial intelligence which determines the ability to learn without being explicitly programmed. For example, spam filtering, fraud detection. Let's say you have a website and you want to determine whether the website has all the credentials that's being entered in that website, whether that's by a legitimate user versus an illegitimate user. So that's a possible application is fraud detection. And the deep learning is again a subset of the machine learning when you explicitly don't train your models, but the models itself learn and extract the patterns from the data using the neural networks. But why do we need it? To allow the machines to learn automatically without the human intervention and to adjust the actions accordingly. For example, if you want to do the image classification and you feed the data set into the model which is of cats, but the computer will understand in the form of the pixels. So after doing the analysis, the machine learning algorithms and the feature data set that you feed in into the model, the computer will determine, okay, by this person confidence, this is the category of a cat, or this is a specific confidence that belongs, this image belongs to the dog, and so on and so forth. So there are various aspects or categories of the machine learning algorithms. The first one, which I'm going to discuss and which is the scope of this talk, is supervised versus unsupervised algorithms. Though there are semi-supervised, there are reinforcement learning algorithms as well. What's a supervised learning algorithm? When you have the data which is fed into the model which is labeled, and the unsupervised is when the data which is fed into the model is unlabeled. So the goal in the supervised learning algorithm is when you want to determine the mapping function from the input to the output variable, when you have the clear distinction what the expected output should be. While in case of the unsupervised learning algorithms, your goal is to determine the underlying structure of the distribution of the data in order to learn and make the decisions or predict the outcomes about it. the one possible or like some of the famous algorithms for the supervised learning algorithms are the regression problems or the classification problems. In the regression problems, you can use linear regression or there are other algorithms available over there. And in the classification problems, you can use decision trees, random forest, and so on and so forth. For the unsupervised, you can do the clustering problems using k-means algorithm, or for the rule-based learning problems, you can use a priori. For the linear regression, which is one such subset of the supervised machine learning algorithm, I want to give through an example and explain it. And furtherwards, I'll also demo you. So if the problem statement is, will I be able to pass the applied machine learning course or not? So that's a problem statement that is being given to you. And you have to determine the output of this particular problem statement using on the two feature model. So we are building a feature model, which is determined by the two features. The first X1 feature determines the number of the hours that you spend on the final project. The X2 is the number of the lectures that you attended. By intuitively, you will be able to pass through the course if you have, like the deterministic function is such a way that X1 and X2 are directly proportional to each other. But let's see how the output goes like. So you plotted the two feature, the input which is fed in the model in the feature map in such a way that the x-axis represents the number of the lectures that I attend, and the x2 represents the number of the hours which are spent on the final project. Here I've plotted myself as a purple dot, which is 4 and 5, and 4 is the number of the lectures. And because you have the data set and you plot in a feature map like in a vector form, and the red dots represent the students who have failed, and the green dots represent the students who have passed. So I'm likely going to pass the exam or pass this course. Okay, I want to give a small demo of this project as, a linear regression model. Yeah. I hope you can see the screen. So in this, you have given a data set, which is a sample, which is a sales data set in which you have been fed into the model the land structure or the dimensions of the land, and you have to predict the cost of the house. So once you have trained the model, then you will see. Okay, I'm just running it. It's. Okay, the price of the expected house will of 1,000 by 2,000.
I'm sorry. That's very good. Thank you very much.
So yeah, this is a talk about dealing with technical ideas you don't like. Because sometimes on the day-to-day, you might be asked these questions, or other developers you're working with might be like, hey, I want to try this new thing out. And maybe you don't feel so great about it. Maybe your first instinct might be to try and argue about why they're wrong. And that's usually how it kind of turns out. And I actually want to challenge you to instead, when you're getting that feeling, but whether you're a senior or a junior developer, there are like a bunch of different tools at your disposal to try and really think about, okay, there's this thing that maybe I'm not quite so feeling right now, but what are ways to kind of go past that feeling? Time box is one of my favorite tools for this, be that in a pairing session or not in one, which is really about like leaving space to figure the problem out. And so it's like, well, I'm not quite certain if this is gonna work, but I'm gonna let you show me that this is gonna work. And that it both works as like a trust-giving tool, because like you're collaborating with them rather than fighting with them. And then also that gives us a point to kind of pull back to be like, we tried this for 2 hours. Can we try my way now? So it really does kind of help to let there be like an avenue of a give and forth back. And what I would say is, if you're like doing like a bigger time box, like if you add something in the code base, definitely do make sure to figure out when you're going to pull it out, or whether you're going to be like, oh yeah, we want to keep doing this, because otherwise, cruft. And kind of extending on that, I really love red-green refactor just as like a general philosophy for this kind of thing, because if you can make sure we're at like a place of like we've moved forward, the feature is done, now we have the time to explore that refactor, it can be really nice, because then if you blow that time box, hey, you still have working code, we can still move on. Another really great thing to do is actually to double check that you actually understand the problem. Because sometimes if they're asking for like, hey, I'd really love to use this tool, or I really don't like this code, there might be other things going on. So like great tools for that I find are like, so the story I'm hearing is this, or let me say this back to you. Is this what you were saying? Really just trying to understand what pain point are they trying to solve? Because you might be like, oh, you're trying to solve that. There's another way we can do that. We don't need to do whatever you're suggesting. It's just really useful to a lot because like you want to seek that alignment on like why this matters. Another great tool, especially if it's more top-down, being told you need to do it, take charge of it yourself. Like you're not so quite certain about microservices, and the organization wants to do microservices. Take lead on that process. Learn about how microservices work. Try and really like get in the problem yourself. It both lets you kind of set the terms of a compromise if you do feel like you need to make a compromise, but also you can discover, oh, maybe it wasn't so bad, and I just needed to take that first leap. But also do make sure you're being honest with yourself, because you can also just do it in bad faith. And check to make sure that you're not being the stick in the mud. It can be really helpful to kind of look at the context of the other team, look at, have we tried this before, and are they missing that context? Is they're the new guy suggesting something and they don't know, oh, we've already tried that thing. So really just making sure there's a process for that, and making sure you can step out and your feelings out of the equation. And checking your own assumptions. And yeah, and it's going to be messy, because when you're trying new ideas, you're going to fail. And when you're trying to not like get stuck into that mindset, you might still have like baggage that you're not really examining, and just really kind of moving forward on it. Like for example, I used to think about this as controlling the blast radius, which is kind of condescending because it's assuming that you know that it's a problem and you're trying to like let it contain. Versus like really, we're all experimenting and figuring out new things, and the technologies are unfamiliar to all of us sometimes. So really like leave the space for it to be an experiment so we can learn from it, and it's not like whether or not it's a failure or not. And then I work at BackerKit, so if you like experimenting with process and failure, come talk to me. Also have a cat game.
Awesome. Thank you, Ivan.
All right, hi, I'm Carolyn Cole. I work at the Princeton University Library. And I was talking to a number of people that were saying, hey, I know tests are good, but I always run out of time, or I'm not that interested. And so I want to give you a different framework for thinking about tests. And so I'm positing that tests are self-care. So I like to think of myself as three people. It's a little bit out there, but hear me out. It's me yesterday, what I did in the past, me today, and tomorrow me. So I'm not just me today. So why are tests self-care? So I want you to think about any time you've gotten into code and it's untested and you were told you need to make a change. How does that make you feel? For me, it makes me feel pretty scared and kind of sucky. And then I get into code and think about when you get into code and you have to make a change and it's fully tested and you're like, yes, I know I can make this change without breaking something else. And I feel pretty awesome about that. So when I get into code that previous me wrote a test for, I feel like I cared for myself. It's kind of awesome. And when I write code today and I take the time to write a test, I'm caring for myself tomorrow. So, tests are self-care. Thank you.
Awesome.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I am anonymous person number 6, aka Edward Anderson. I am a staff engineer at Doximity, and I'm going to talk to you about conflicts today in Git. Yeah, give me a shout out if you hate Git conflicts.
I hate Git conflicts.
Oh, yeah. So in general, like the process we have to go through here is to understand the change that happened on both of the branches that we're merging. And just by looking at this conflict, I have no idea what to do here. Like maybe someone else on my team made this change in my branch, and oh gosh, I don't even know what my change was, right? So I could go look at the pull request, diff, and reapply changes from my branch to the master branch, or I could go look at what's changed in master since I merged and apply those changes to mine, or maybe I need to examine the surrounding code and try to understand that better. I could get blame and try to talk to people, right? But The problem here and why this is so frustrating is that it's a lot of work when you just want to ship code. And you have to leave the context of your editor here to figure all these things out. And so I'm going to tell you the story, or I'm going to tell you why I fell in love with Git conflict resolution. Right here at the top, we've got a Git config global merge conflict style diff3. If you set this in Git, it's built into Git. You don't have to add any plugins or anything. You just change your conflict style to diff3, then you get a third section in the middle. And I'll talk through this. So now you can see where the code started in that center section. It was messages 1, deliver true, right? And you can see what each side on the top and on the bottom did in their respective branches. And so now my job as a merger here, resolving the conflict, is to take the changes from both sides and merge them together. Now, the easy part is we've already got one of the changes on one side, so I just take the change, which I can see visually now in this small context, and apply it to the other side. It's beautiful and allows you to merge conflicts, resolve conflicts much faster. Sometimes it's not just in a small context, though, and these commands, the triple dot operator with git diff, can be really helpful. So you can see, for example, the change on one side given a merge commit, or the change on the other side given a merge commit. And then you can see what happened in master, for example, or if you need to review it, what happened in your branch. Anyway, in general, the rules for resolving a conflict are to discover what the changes are and then pick the simplest change, then apply it to the other side. Once you've done that, then you've resolved your conflict and everything is okay again. That's it for me. Thank you, everyone.
I don't feel conflicted about that.
Okay. Yes, I am an anonymous person who wants to talk about imposter syndrome. My name is Lindsay Samard. I am a senior developer at BackerKit, and of course, we're hiring. So I'm going to start with my little tale here. But first, I want to let you know that though I work for a Rails monolith, we are not a monolith. I'm only going to be talking about my own opinions, and I'm going to be using myself as an example, but I'm not trying to speak for people in my demographic or anything like that. This is just my opinion and experience. So I went to a boot camp. I redacted the name. It's not going to be hard for you to figure out what it was. Please don't get it twisted. I'm about to bash this boot camp, but these are all really smart, rad women and non-binary folks, so I don't want them. Don't not hire people from this place. So this is me. That is from that photo. And you can tell I look unable to force myself to smile. And that's because a lot of the conversations I had with my advisor went like this. I don't know stuff. You have imposter syndrome. And it's like, actually, I just don't know stuff. And then I went on a little rant that they were not actually open to hearing. So I get that imposter syndrome is a thing. I'm in no way trying to downplay that. I have a little definition up here, which is doubting your abilities and feeling like a fraud at work. And just as some caveats, if it's present, that shouldn't be the end of the dialogue. That means you need to talk about it, not just be like, hey, you have a thing, run to the pharmacist, here's your prescription, bye. Also, some early career devs do have this, but being realistic about one's abilities is not imposter syndrome. So maybe this is obvious, but it's good to listen to people talk about their feelings rather than telling them how they feel. Controversial point. People don't like when you tell them how they feel. So if you're listening to the developer and they don't feel like a fraud, they don't have imposter syndrome. Sorry, you're gonna have to talk more. Do they doubt their abilities? Fine, but they still don't have imposter syndrome if they're not meeting that first criteria. So if you want to emphasize that being baby is okay and that we are all baby to a certain extent, there's tons to learn, you're never going to know everything, you might say some of these phrases here. These are all pieces of advice or anecdotes that people have told me when I was starting out. My favorite one is that if we're failing as a team, or we are failing as a team if I am not growing as a developer. And I think that's really true, and that's an attitude that you can express throughout your team. But more importantly, how do you show this rather than tell this? Because I am a big believer that while saying things is nice, demonstrating that you truly believe that is much better. So this one's probably pretty obvious. Positive and public feedback and recognition is a great way to boost someone's confidence and demonstrate how much you believe in them. So I have this phrase from a workshop we did, which is about feedback. Diamond feedback is positive and specific. Heart feedback is more generic. So heart feedback is like, hey, great job today. Cool. They have no idea what they did great, just that today they did great. Not as helpful as knowing what they're doing well. And you'll notice here, I have an example. This is from Lily. She's a senior developer at BackerKit. And Jackie, who she's talking about here, is our junior developer intern. So these are some examples of how she's truly demonstrating that, wow, I'm impressed that you did this, this, and this.
1 minute.
And it's not just, hey, good job. This goes a lot further. You can also boost their comments or ideas in a meeting by saying like, yeah, I agree with this person and think they stated it really well. So next up, we have setting an example. You need to demonstrate this is a safe space to fail in the ways that you actually accept your own failure. I'm really bad at this. I'm gonna just go ahead and own that. I come off as defensive when confronted with feedback sometimes. I think many people struggle. But the most important thing is don't make it a big deal. And the other thing I want to say here is make sure that you don't over-index on a specific
10 seconds.
error that was made. Okay, moving forward, here's some more ideas. You can read that. And now, yes, we're hiring. Learn how to floss. Thank you.
Thank you. That was very good.
I'm Valerie Willard. I am a data infrastructure engineer at Heroku, but I'm not going to be talking about programming at all in this talk. It's going to be about dinosaurs. This is You Do Not Have to Be Good, a story about dinosaurs. That's my Twitter handle. Follow me if you like dinosaurs or Ruby. I really love dinosaurs. This is the paper craft dinosaur that I made during the pandemic and hung behind my desk. I love it very, very much. At some point, I got really into drawing dinosaurs. I was like asking for people's addresses so that I could draw little postcards for them with dinosaurs on them. And then at some point last year, in a move to sort of stave off the general despair and ennui of the past 18 months, I decided to draw some dinosaurs in exchange for people's donations to nonprofits that I felt were doing important work or political campaigns that I thought were doing important work. And despite the fact that I'm not particularly good at drawing dinosaurs, people seem to find this charming enough to send me a bunch of donation receipts. So today I have drawn 32 dinosaurs in exchange for donations and received over $4,000 of receipts for those donations. This is a spicy dinosaur. I do take requests. And here are some more of my favorite dinosaurs that I've drawn. This is a T-Rex. This is a Troodon. Cowboy Velociraptor. And I don't know how to say that, but I called it I believe the person I sent it to called it a murder turkey, which I really appreciate. And that's the last one. It's important to do things that bring you joy, even if you're not good at them. Thank you, goodbye.
I think they're fantastic. All right. Ice cream.
It's going to be tough to follow dinosaurs.
I mean, that's true.
So I love ice cream. I really love ice cream. I actually have an ice cream pin. You probably can't see it very well, but it is here. I've been eating ice cream for breakfast I ate it for about 25 years straight for breakfast. Now it's kind of off and on, still a staple item, if you ask me. And that passion actually manifested into an ice cream startup. That's another story for another lightning talk. but this is just an example of how much I love ice cream. So I'm Jillian Friot, and I'm with the Orbit team. So we are behind the Orbit model, which is an open source project to help communities build high gravity communities. And I wanted to share with you my favorite analogy around communities, which is from really from our founders of the Orbit model, Patrick and Josh. So happy to have you check out more on that too at orbitmodel.com. But yeah, essentially high gravity communities are a way for you to create a community that excels at attracting and retaining its members because of this outstanding experience that you've created for them. So it helps them to build more value for each other and really share their love of community. So combining the love of ice cream with love of community, I will share this metaphor with you. So you're all probably familiar with the funnel, the sort of funnel approach to, say, sales and marketing, where you're going through this linear and binary process, and that's sort of understanding from awareness to conversion to say advocacy, and that works great for sales and marketing, but it doesn't work so great for community, as we know. It's communities ebb and flow, and it's really not about sales. So the metaphor is thinking of, let's add ice cream to your funnel. So combining your go-to-market with a go-to-community approach. So the ice cream portion of this, adding this sweet ice cream on top of your cone here, helps this framework and thinking helps you to differentiate between what it means to build community and what it means to build a sales funnel, and that they can be complementary. So your go-to-community strategy here and having this wonderful ice cream on top of your cone allows for those members to potentially drip into that cone at the right time when that sales conversation is a really great fit, but also allows you to, as a community manager, say developer relations managers or a manager of any community, to be able to interact with your community in a way that helps them to build more value and for you to build that high center of gravity around that. So so this is not just separate from those people who may fall into the sales category. It helps you then work with partners and others who may never be the right fit for the sales, that cone portion of your ice cream cone. So understanding that framework and thinking of it in that way is really helpful for building communities that have high love for each other and for bringing that value back to the community. So I hope this helps you to build sweet, high gravity communities.
Thank you, Jillian.
Decided to take this challenge. I was asking people, hey, if I did a talk, what would it be about? Could it be about, my background in, startups and things like that? Or should I talk about security? And everybody picked the hard thing. So here it is, a security synopsis. So I just want to say, it's a huge, huge, huge footprint. We could talk about this all day. I could be here all night. So I'm not going to talk about, the things that don't deal with application security. I'm going to mostly talk about, securing your infrastructure, securing your supply chain, and securing your application itself, the code. First things first, I want to talk about the security mindset. I found this really great quote. It's security requires a particular mindset. Security professionals, at least the good ones, see the world differently. They can't walk into a store without noticing how they might shoplift. They can't use a computer without wondering about the security vulnerabilities. They can't vote without trying to figure out how to vote twice. They just can't help it. And so when we talk about a security mindset, and this is Bruce Schneier, by the way, from the EFF. He also does some teaching about privacy and a bunch of other amazing things. So when we talk about a security mindset and what makes great security professionals, it's important to remember that organizations, everybody should be focusing on how can they have a mindset for security. It's something that is in all of our teams. It's something that we share and learn from each other with. And so, my favorite thing to do is to talk about all of those things. I'm a very, honest person, but I do see lots of room for mischief. So, talking about infrastructure, security and infrastructure, the best way to secure infrastructure is to just don't have any. So if you could avoid it, use Heroku, use serverless, if you really have to run a server, that is a way, way harder challenge. So don't do it. And honestly, everything in here is going to be like, don't write code, don't run applications, don't run servers. So just the answer to everything in security is no. And so, look up the best practices, look up hardening tips, everything that you're using, your database, every library, gem, your Rails framework. Rails is great out of the box. It has so many security features. Have backups, ransomware, seriously. And the biggest thing is, test them, make sure that they're working, rotate your keys. Cloudflare is awesome. It is swallowing the internet. So I understand that that is a thing that not everybody wants to support. And so, there are things like Rack Attack that can do a lot of, rate limiting, throttling, and blocking attacks and things like that. Let's see. So supply chain, the folks at Shopify, they've got a booth. They have a whole team that is focused around supply chains, specifically about how we secure our dependencies as they transit from, GitHub or wherever they come from to our machines, to our networks, to the rest of our systems. They've done some really awesome work. So, the best dependencies are no dependencies, but also, look up, how long software is going to be supported. There is a release cycle for Rails. There's a release cycle for pretty much all of these major dependencies and things like that. So make sure you understand LTS, long-term support. I don't have a cheer for that, I'm sorry. So I'm gonna put all these slides and things like that up on Twitter and whatnot, and just, make sure that everybody can, benefit from all these things. But yeah, it's all about automation. I'm really big on linting. I'm really big on, this is so hard. Thank you, everybody, in any case. So, the last thing I want to say is, we don't have signing in our gems. We don't have, cryptographic, means of authenticity. So we can't really verify the code that's running when we download it. We just have TLS to secure things, but that's really not enough. And so I just want to say, we should expect a lot more from Ruby, and it is something that we've been kind of lagging behind in as a community. And so I would say, complain to the Ruby Gems maintainers, complain to the bundler folks. I'm sure they really want to do something about it, but just a little push. So, last thing, securing your application.
10 seconds.
Don't roll your own. That's the answer to everything. These are some options that are great off the shelf that'll work for most things. So thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mo. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I've been coding since October of 2018 and making money coding since April of 2019. And I'm going to talk to you about you're never too green to be a mentor. Everybody had a lot of really great animal pictures in their slides, and I threw my slides together about 10 minutes before this whole thing started, 48 minutes ago. So here's a recent photo of my dog. I'm a total newbie. There's no way that I could possibly be a mentor was my exact thought the first time that someone suggested to me that I could be a mentor. How many of you remember your very first light bulb moment as you were learning to be a developer? My light bulb moment was learning how to do nested list comprehensions in Python. I studied Python when I was in boot camp. I have not written in Python since I graduated from my boot camp, but I still remember my first light bulb moment. We've all had them, and hopefully you remember what some of your light bulb moments have been. And that's a really great place to start in sharing what your light bulb moment was with someone who is struggling with that same concept. Why would I want to be a mentor? Great question. If you find reward in helping other people, if you love working in tech and you want to share your passion with other folks, those are great places to start. I love witnessing other people have those light bulb moments. That is one of the most rewarding things that I've gotten out of being a mentor to others. And I also want to recruit as many people as I possibly can into tech, specifically minorities. So those are the people that I tend to be mentoring. Okay, how would I mentor? What does that even look like? What does that mean to be a mentor? What do I actually do in the process? There are a couple different things. The first 4 points here are things that I strongly recommend and that I practice regularly. The last point is an idea. Maybe you're mentoring somebody that has very similar passions as you do, and you get really excited about some of the same things. Maybe starting a project with them would be a great idea.
Regular communication and check-ins are key. I have had several friends that have asked me about my transition into tech, because this is not my first career, and have kind of wanted to know why I did it. And then when I explain it to them and talk to them, they're really jazzed, and they're kind of considering it because maybe they're not happy where they are, what they're doing. So when I've offered to mentor them, this is what I was doing. We did weekly 1-hour Zoom meetings to talk about their hopes and their dreams, getting to know them as people, finding out what motivates them, what are they afraid of, and just helping lift them up and talk them through some of those challenges. Pair programming is great. Maybe they're in a coding boot camp and maybe they're having an issue with a project or with an assignment. So you could pair program with them. There was an earlier talk today about pair programming as a great mentorship opportunity that is wonderful. If you were not able to attend, I highly recommend that you watch the recording once it's posted later on. All right, I'm in. I want to be a mentor. What do I do? How do I become a mentor? All right, if your job has opportunities for being involved in your onboarding program, which hopefully your companies have great onboarding programs that you can get involved with, that's a really great opportunity. That's a great first step. It's easy. You can do it during working hours, kind of an easy kind of first step for getting out there. Getting involved in tech communities, meetups, whether that's local or virtual, connecting with people, seeking out junior devs. There's a lot of meetup groups that are specific to the junior community, people that are new into the industry. Chances are they would be happy to have a mentor and would really benefit from it. Going to conferences like this one. Again, as you're networking, if you find out someone's a junior or someone is just trying to get in or even thinking about coming in, maybe they're not even in yet, those people would be great opportunities to offer if they would like a mentor. And then LinkedIn. Some mentors that I have worked with have posted on their LinkedIns that they're open to taking on mentees. Some of them commit to doing 3 or 4 a year. And they have varying levels of commitment, whether that's meeting once a week, meeting twice a month. It can vary based on what works for you and what works for your mentee. So go for it. Just do it. What do you have to lose? I'm giving special thanks to Micah Gates for brainstorming this chat with me today during lunch, and Rachel Kirk for taking notes as I was brainstorming with Micah, and extra special thanks to all of the mentors and mentees that I've had in my life. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you very much.